You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, a proud member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all of those great shows to get great Patriots content all week long. But tonight, it's your boy Pat Lane here with my guy Matt St. Jean. And Matt, we're a day late because I was running my senior prom at school. My senior prom, but my seniors.
Did that go okay? No cops involved.
Unbelievable. There was a moment early where there was smoke in the girls' bathroom. We had to evacuate the building. I had to shut the DJ off for a minute, get on the mic, tell the kids if you're vaping in the bathroom, if it goes off in the bathroom again, we're canceling prom. You're all going home. Luckily, it didn't happen again. But it was a great night. It was gorgeous on the water out by we were in Newport on Goat Island. It was unbelievable. Oh, yeah. The sunset, the golden hour, it was unreal. So kids had a blast. They were dancing, they were playing games, they were doing we had photo booths set up, we had all sorts of different things set up. So it was really nice. It was a nice night. So we had a great time. But before that even happened, long awaited, AJ Brown became a member of the New England Patriots. Finally, our long national nightmare is over. And here we are. AJ Brown's on the Patriots, and they got cucked, which we'll talk about. But they, fittingly for the Patriots, they got cucked on the day they traded for AJ Brown. So, it's interesting. So, what did you think of the trade, Matt?
I mean, it's about what we expected. A little upset that the Patriots had to give up extra from a first round pick in the form of a fifth. That's pocket change. So they had 2 fifths anyway. It doesn't really matter. We have talked ad nauseum about this possibility. So I'm not going to change my mind now that it has finally happened. I don't love that it took a first-round pick to get this done. And I have my concerns about some of the long-term stuff here. But we're going to have a second to talk about the negatives. AJ Brown is on our team. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on this. I think it's very exciting. It's just risky. The way I see this, like the range of outcomes for this kind of groups like at the far ends of the spectrum. I don't see a lot of middle ground here. I think AJ Brown comes in and is the elite receiver he has been, and you're going to be a bona fide Super Bowl contender for the next 2-3 years, or those issues have caught up with him, / the roster wasn't as good as you thought it was, and you are not a Super Bowl contender. And you're really going to feel missing that first round pick. So that's the risk. But the upside here is absolutely massive. He's a perfect fit with Drake May. And I can't wait to see him in a Patriots uniform finally after all these years.
I know. Should have happened 7 years ago, but I suppose it's neither here nor there. But here's what I'll say, right? We did an instant reaction grade for Pat's Pulpit. I gave it a C, right? Instant reaction. It should have been a C+. I was literally in the middle of chaperoning prom, writing that. Actually, not even chaperoning prom, setting up for prom, writing that. Rushed through it, said what I wanted to say, gave the wrong grade. Probably should have given a B- or a C+. Nevertheless, I don't love that we gave up a first-round pick in 2028. An unprotected, quote unquote, you can't protect picks like you can in the NBA, but you get the idea, right? It's a conditional first-round pick, right? I said all along I wanted the Patriots to give up a conditional pick. I thought it made sense for the Patriots. I thought it made sense for the Eagles. They could go back and, explain to their fan base that we got a first-round pick and you didn't think we would and blah, 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 and whatever, right? And then they gave up the extra fifth-round pick as well as like a sweetener. Am I happy about that? No. But here's what I will say, okay? Sometimes you don't have to win the trade to win the trade, right? Did the Patriots overpay for AJ Brown a little bit? Yes, they did. However, they now have AJ Brown on their team. And having AJ Brown on your team means that you instantly become significantly better passing offense than you were yesterday I guess 2 days ago, because they traded for him yesterday. And your passing offense should be better than it was last year when you had the third best passing offense in the NFL. So to me, I look at it and say, I get it. You had to do what you had to do to get the guy. And if it works out the way they think it will be a great trade regardless of what you had to give up for.
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, I think right now I would say the Patriots probably overpaid for this because the Eagles knew they had an asset the Patriots really wanted. Mike Vrabel really likes AJ Brown, and they were able to do that. But part of that is that there's a risk that a first round pick has that later round picks don't. If the Patriots end up picking up pick 27 for AJ Brown, assuming he's the player we think he is, that's not an overpay. That's completely fine.
Right.
Ends up being pick 12, even if AJ Brown's good, that's an overpay. There's a big difference in value between those two picks. And I think that has always been my concern with it. It's just that when you're looking 2 years out without knowing what Brown's going to be, there's so much can change in 2 years in the NFL that there's always just a certain degree of risk about giving up that pick because you don't know where that's going to be. I mean, plausibly, it's anywhere from 1 to 32. I highly doubt that pick ends up being a pick. I highly doubt.
Right.
Something has to have gone catastrophically wrong to be in that realm where you're probably not worried. Like, it's something well beyond the AJ Brown stuff has gone wrong to get to that point. But that's just the risk here is that, if something does go catastrophically wrong, there's no floor on it. The bottom can just fall out on that year because something went wrong and now you don't have a top 5, top 10 pick to address it. But I do think, there's a cost to getting the guy you want, and the Patriots paid it. So they're going all on AJ Brown and what he does for that offense there, especially buying for these next 2 years, what that's going to mean for the team, because especially in 2027, you got to be good. So, I mean, I think you look at this and I think the Patriots should take at least mitigate any kind of regression in record this year by adding someone like AJ Brown. And then you probably want to be aggressive again the following offseason in continuing to add to your roster because you want to make sure that 2028 pick doesn't really fall. And also you're looking at probably a 2-year window where AJ Brown's going to be playing quality, where you can bank on him playing quality football for you, and you want to maximize that. You've paid the price for this asset, the value that AJ Brown brings that someone like Stephon Diggs doesn't is that the production between someone like Diggs and AJ Brown might end up being roughly the same. But at this point in their careers, when you look at what they can do on a matchup basis, when you think about playoff games and situational football, it's like the world's most complicated game of rock, paper, scissors in a way. And you just want to have enough options you can throw out there. So if the other team does something or you end up in a weird spot, you have an answer. If you're playing a playoff game that might be decided by 3 points no matter what, you don't want to lose the game because you didn't have an answer for that one thing or you couldn't press this one weakness the other team had. And I think AJ Brown just gives you more answers. He's a more viable deep threat than Stephon Diggs is at this point in his career because he's got better speed and, more importantly, a bigger catch radius. He's a better blocker. I think he can move around to more spots on the field. He can run more routes than Stephon Diggs could, especially if you look at what Diggs would do over the next 2 years. He just wins more matchups for you and gives you more options paired with someone like Romeo Doubs, who you can basically just put anywhere on the field, and I think he'll be successful. And it's all right, this is, especially for winning games in January and February, I think this is a massive move for you.
I agree. And, it's interesting. The Diggs thing is interesting, and I think we'll kind of talk about Diggs over the course of the summer until he signs with someone. I think there's a chance that Diggs comes back here, but I don't want that to be the case. And the reason why is because I think if Diggs comes back here, it's because Kyle Williams isn't ready to step into that wide receiver 3 role yet, or even be sharing that wide receiver 3 role with a guy like Mac Hollins. I also think that Kayshon Boutte, I think they should probably move on from Kayshon Boutte. I think they should definitely move on from Kayshon Boutte. But I also think that you don't have to trade Kayshon Boutte. You don't have to just give him away for nothing, right? There is a world where he can be successful here as well. And if that's the case, then you just hold on to him. If no one's willing to give you anything for him, just keep him and just see what happens, And so I think that their wide receiver room is in flux right now. I think you get a huge boost from getting a guy like AJ Brown, but then let's just see where the rest of the things play out. And the fact that Dobbs slots now into your wide receiver 2 role, and as you said, can kind of move around and play wherever you want on the field, I think is huge. And then if you have that deep threat, that home run hitter like Kyle Williams, and if he can continue to grow and progress from what he was last year, I think the sky's the limit for this offense, especially when you start talking then about Mac Hollins, who had a very solid year last year, Kayshon Boutte, who might still be around, Pop Douglas, Afton Chisholm, if he's able to make the roster, like whatever. And then you're talking about, not even bringing up the running backs, but then you're talking about Eli Raridan and Hunter Henry. And I think that, all of a sudden this offense becomes very difficult to stop.
Yeah. Well, and especially because I think you have a clear number 1 and number 2 wide receiver who do everything.
Right.
And so many different wide receiver 3 candidates that do a variety of things that it's just like, all right, if we want to attack vertically, we're going to put Kyle Williams out there. If we want, if we want like a traditional slot guy, you can put Pop out there. If you want to go big physical slot, you can put Mac Hollins out there. I know that you can address problems in a variety of ways. I agree. I think on Boutte, you wait until like week 2 of the preseason, ideally, if you're going to move him, just because you want to see if there's an injury somewhere that drives up the cost. And that also involves injury in New England, which we're going to have to talk about injuries here in a second because there was a relatively big one.
Pretty big one, yeah.
But, if you get to mid-August and, Pop just tore his ACL, like, all right, well, we're going to just keep Boutte. Like, we don't know exactly what the usage is going to be yet, but that will figure itself out as guys
exactly
earn reps. And I think worst case, you just get a day 3 pick back from someone, trading him in mid-August somewhere. And, they announced the Colts are coming in for joint practices, Eagles coming in. That's 2 different teams that are going to look at your team in joint practices. So in theory, if you're looking for trade partners and stuff, I don't know if the Eagles really have interest in Boutte. I think if they did, he'd have gone back there. But the Colts, especially the Colts losing Michael Pittman.
Yep.
All right, if you come in and you work out with them and you get to work with Boutte for a couple of days, you say, all right, well, we'll send you a 5th or maybe a 4th if we're feeling generous to go get him. That is something, I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with that as well. Timothy, I thought, has an interesting point. He just says, I see no scenario where the 2028 first round pick will change the fate of the Patriots one way or the other, unless they go 1-16, obviously, whatever. But and that's not necessarily wrong. I just think that things happen, injuries happen, like weird stuff happens every year. And you want to believe that your team is immune from that. And now that they were good one year is going to continue to be good every year. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. I will say that I think based on what the Patriots have done this offseason, there's a very strong argument that they believe their best team is going to be the team they put out in 2027. Because I think if you look at their first round draft pick from this year, they traded up. They traded up in the draft to draft a tackle who, if everything goes well, is not going to play a snap this year. So you trade up to draft a guy who's not going to play this year? Again, assuming everything goes well. Because you think your 2027 team is going to be really good. You made the Super Bowl last year. You could have traded next year's first-round pick because you felt really good about this team as well, but you didn't. You traded your first-round pick in 2028 because you're saying that's the year. 2027 is the year that we think we're going to be the best team possible. And again, who knows if they're right about that, but it seems like that's where they're betting. And so we'll see if that pays off, but it should seem to work out that way. Drake May is going to be, if not the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in NFL history that offseason, right? Hopefully Gonzo's here on a big contract as well. And so, you're able to, you may not have a ton of money to spend in free agency, but those contracts also may not have kicked in yet. So even though you've spent some of that money already, those contracts haven't officially started yet. So maybe you can give some short window contracts to some guys next year that, hey, I want to go try to win a ring with the Patriots. They've shown 2 years of sustained success. Drake May looks like a true superstar. I want to go here and win a ring, right? And so you can kind of turn it into that type of offseason instead of the offseason we had last year or even this year.
Yeah, no, 100%. I will say, like, I don't think they're going to miss that 2028 first in 2028. I hope they don't. But I do think you look back at, like, the 2016 Patriots, they didn't miss the first round pick they lost that year. They didn't miss it in 2017. They didn't miss it in 2018. But, you look at the way the talent gets depleted by 2019, 2020, and how much they have to spend in free agency to try to make up from that. One first-round pick probably isn't the difference from where that roster got, but there's also the compounding effects. The fact that then you're using a first on N'Keal Harry and trading a second for Mohamed Sanu, and you're overpaying to fix deficiencies with your team in large part because you didn't draft well. But it's harder to draft well when you don't have a pick in the first round, no matter where it is. And if that. You look at that 2028 draft. If the Patriots are as good as we think they're going to be, let's say they win the Super Bowl that year, that means you're not going to pick until pick 64 in that draft. That means everyone in the top 2 tiers of talent, you're not getting even a dart throw. You don't get to dip your toe in the water with that talent pool. And that's the kind of stuff that has the longer ranging implications, which I'm totally fine absorbing some of that risk. And I do think this is part of the price of doing business now. We have talked on here, made comparisons to the Randy Moss trade back in the day. And I think one of the reasons why moves like this are more expensive. There's actually, I think, 2 reasons why moves kind of like that are more expensive now. One, it's become increasingly a passing league since then. Not that we didn't know that in 2007. We did know it was a passing league.
Right.
But it was like, that was one of those things that, like, some of the teams were that. Now everybody is in an arms race at wide receiver. So, like, there's less competition for someone like Moss in 07 than what you have today. And I think the way the salary cap has gone up, you're not going to get impact free agents as much at these positions.
Right.
So the only way to get someone is, first round pick. And it almost feels like a first round pick is just like the cost of doing business in some ways. Like it's like the really good players go for 2. or a first and a second,
or something else, or right.
When I thought it was interesting, I think they were saying this in the Bill Simmons pod and maybe on one of the other pods I was listening to. But like the fact that the Patriots only gave up a first, I think Matt Harmon and Nate Tice were talking about this too. The fact that the Patriots only gave up a first, only one of them in their words, was kind of evidence of the fact that AJ Brown is a player in decline at this point. So. It was a little rich for my blood. I did give it a C- on Pat's pulpit only because, to me, I'm not 100% convinced that the roster is close enough to being a Super Bowl roster that this one move puts you over the top. Obviously, very open to being proven wrong there. And I think, lean more towards the risk side with Brown with his profile than some others do. But like I'm excited to see him. I will say with the risk stuff, I'll reference Matt Harmon here, Yahoo, Reception Perception. He grades receivers. He wrote a full article about how AJ Brown is one of his favorite receivers, like, ever. He loves what he brings to the game. And in his charting, he noticed last year, like, big drop off in separation against man coverage, big drop off in separation against zone coverage, lower top speed. And, some of these are symptoms of being not as engaged in the offense, of running more predictable route concepts where defenders kind of know what's coming. Also, part of it is that AJ Brown has wear on the tires. Yeah, like he had to get his knee drained like twice a week in 2024 just to play in that Super Bowl. I think he was dealing with hamstring injuries all last year. Sometimes those injury issues clear up for someone. Like he said in his press conference today that he's all good from a health perspective. Maybe he is, and some of the issues over the last 2 seasons are purely he was dealing with a medical issue that season. It's cleared up, and he's going to bounce back. Sometimes that just kind of keeps wearing down, and you never quite recover to where you were before. And there's no way of knowing until you go out there. And like it's also not linear necessarily, and are not that predictable. AJ Brown could come out and look like second half of the season 2019 Mohamed Sanu, where it's like, oh, he had the hamstring injury and he just doesn't have juice anymore. Yeah. That happens sometimes. Or AJ Brown could clearly age and age gracefully, like a Larry Fitzgerald, where he embraces more of a slot role and is still like a high quality impact receiver who can win you playoff games.
Yeah.
No way of knowing like where you're going to fall on that spectrum until you play the games, and that's the risk you take on.
Agreed. All right, let's ad break, and then we'll continue with this, talk a little OTAs. We'll get into that crazy trade yesterday as well. But the NBA Finals are here, but the action doesn't stop when the confetti falls and the NBA crowns a champion, because it's a star-studded, scorching summer of sports. Woo! Women's basketball and baseball are heating up. We've got the world's biggest soccer tournament on American soil, played at Boston Stadium, and the first ever MMA fight on the White House lawn. Make your picks for these events and more this summer on PrizePicks, America's #1 sports picks app. Now, game 1 of the finals, Wednesday night. I'm going right now. PrizePicks. Get into PrizePicks right now. They have a 0.5 points for Jalen Brunson. I'm pretty sure he's going to get over 0.5 points. We'll see, but I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Jalen Brunson, free square, and Dylan Harper. I'm going for more than 21.5 on a fantasy score. That's what I'm going for Dylan Harper. What you're going to do, download the app today, put in the promo code CLNS, and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. PrizePicks, a preferred partner of the NBA. So,
I want to talk more about this trade before we move on to the AJ Brown one, because I think we should talk about like the usage of AJ Brown in New England more specifically. Yes. I don't know where you are in thoughts, but Josh McDaniels today made the Gronk comparison.
Yeah,
and all I thought of in my mind was Super Bowl 53, 2018, down in Atlanta, that last big play to Gronk where he runs that slot fade. And I'm just thinking of in the Josh McDaniels offense, how many ways they have of getting a slot receiver into that spot, whether, you can do it from a more traditional look where you're going to put Dobbs on the outside and AJ Brown in this slot. You can put a running back out there. You can put a fullback out there. You can do a lot of different formations and looks. How you can to get some kind of isolated one-on-one slot fade or slot post, both of which I think are AJ Brown's strengths as a route runner. And I think that kind of play, I think with Stephon Diggs, when you wanted a big play out of him, you kind of had to scheme it up. Kyle Williams, if you wanted a big play out of him, you need like very specifically the right look from it. Same with Booty, although a little bit less specific last year. AJ Brown's the kind of guy where you just, you could run a litany of plays and have a lot of different matchups and feel like, all right, well, it's the first play of a drive and a got to have it situation. We're going to go to this and we're going to get a 25-yard chunk play instead of, all right, let's see if we can get a 7-yarder on the first one, get things going and get the offense into gear. And the ability to just think bigger early on in the down, early on in the situations puts more stress on the defense.
Yeah, I agree. And Nikhil actually says it right here. Romeo Dobbs breakout. And I think what's interesting to me about the usage of AJ Brown is the way it factors into everyone else, right? And we kind of had talked about this, and we talked about it last year with Stephon Diggs, where he came in and just slaughtered everyone down the slot, right? I like Romeo Dobbs a lot. Romeo Dobbs is the best receiver on the Patriots Monday at 3:59, right? Now at 4:01 on Monday, he's no longer the best receiver on the Patriots. He's the second best receiver on the Patriots. But now you feel a lot better with Romeo Dobbs as your second best receiver as opposed to your first best receiver, right? And so you look at it and say, okay, here we are. Let's see what happens. All right, we got to take away A.J. Brown. He's going to be playing all over the field. He's not just your outside receiver. He's going to be playing everywhere. Romeo Dobbs going to be playing everywhere. He has the ability to play all over the field. One of the reasons why I love Stephon Diggs, and I would welcome Stephon Diggs back, he can do the same thing. Imagine you go into a playoff game, you line up and you bring out 3 wide receivers, and your 3 wide receiver set is A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs, and Stephon Diggs. No one has any idea where any of them are lining up. They could run any route out of any positioning. And so it just becomes a situation where it's hard to stop. Now, again, put Kyle Williams in there, or put, Matt Collins in there, or put Kayshon Boutte in there, if that's a guy. Whatever the case may be, I just think when I look at it and think, okay, I'm really happy with this. And again, and you mentioned this a little bit when you talked about A.J. Brown, but it was the monotony of that offense last year. That offense was a train wreck last year. And it wasn't just the players, it was the coaching, it was the play calls. It was boring, right? It seemed like there was no originality. And so, and McDaniels is the opposite of that. He's throwing things against the wall and playing different things and putting guys in different spots. And I think that that's going to pay dividends for them this year.
Well, and you got a quarterback who is willing and able to throw the ball over the middle of the field too.
Well, that
which
also
I think helps.
Too.
Yeah, and you look at the usage of A.J. Brown over time. When he's in Tennessee, he's mostly the X receiver. He moves into more of a flanker, big slot role his last year in Tennessee when they brought in Julio Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But basically out of all those roles, it's the big play action shots. We're going to get them on posts. We're going to get them on digs. We're going to get them on over routes because we want to put stress on the middle of the field with run action, and then have our biggest, fastest, hardest to tackle athlete run right behind those linebackers and create separation and run away from you. And that's what he did. I mean, that's how he killed teams in Tennessee. Yeah. And then you look at his role in Philly, and it's more of a traditional outside the numbers X receiver thing. And the fact that he can do both of those, I think, is massive. He's not as good at breaking the tackles as he once was, unless he bounces back here.
Yeah.
But even then, he's still significantly better at breaking tackles than all of the other Patriots wide receivers put together. Like, that's one of his biggest strengths, that if you get him in space, he's just big. You can't tackle him. And that's the part of where the Gronk comparison comes in.
Right.
Yeah. I look at I think you look at the Patriots personnel, I think kind of the thesis of this offense is that you're going to put 2 running backs, one of them being a fullback, a tight end, and 2 receivers, Brown and Doubs, on the field. And you're going to be really good at running the football out of that. With another year of Will Campbell and another year of Jared Wilson and Elijah Vera Tucker added to that, you bring in a good fullback. It's like, all right, we are going to run the football, and you are going to have to change what players you have on the field because we can run out of this. And then the second that happens, it's how do we get A.J. Brown a matchup on a safety or a linebacker or your worst corner, or the same with Doubs. Or, if you know that you have to put base personnel on the field because we're running the ball down your throat, now it's going to be zone coverage. Or it's going to be, that's where you can get to those big play action shots where I think, Brown's so lethal, but I think Romeo Doubs is so lethal there. And looking way ahead for a second, week 1 is going to be so interesting because the Patriots' whole thesis is you want to play light. We are going to bully you into putting bigger players on the field to stop a run so that we can throw against you. And the Seahawks defensive philosophy, as we just saw, is we're going to be so fast and physical that we can have all light players on the field and you still won't be able to run. Like, don't be surprised if the opening snap of the season is the Patriots with a fullback on the field and the Seahawks have 6 defensive backs. And it's going to come down, it'll coming down to the first 10 scripted plays. The Patriots going to have a bunch of runs in there, and it's going to be, all right, let's see what happens. Pat, I lost to you, by the way.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was on my end or not. Well, while Pat is figuring out his camera, it's such a clash of styles of both of these teams trying to push in opposite directions. And then off of that, you're going to play with 3 receivers on the field, 40 to 50% of the time. The Patriots were about 50%, I think 49% last year. They'll probably be in that range again. So it's, can one of those other receivers be, assuming they're not bringing in Diggs, be good enough? Because then, basically the 5th player on the field is always going to be one of, now Eli Raridan, no Julian Hill. It's going to be Reggie Gilliam or one of these other receivers. And there's obviously going to be a rotation and situational play, but you're trying to find your 3 or 4 best groups of 5 players out of those looks.
Yeah.
Not like assuming there's always going to be one running back who could be one of the 2 guys and one tight end. It's going to be Henry, and you're going to have 2 receivers. Like that's whoever that other guy is becomes huge. So like I'm going to look at some OTA notes real quick here, because one of the things that caught my eye, Kyle Williams today catching a dig route. His route tree last year is basically run vertical, run vertical, run vertical, run a curl, vertical, 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 run a comeback. Like it was just straight up and down the field, or a drag route. If you can get him threatening the middle of the field too, if we're talking a world where AJ Brown's going to be your big slot, Dobbs is your flanker, and Kyle Williams can be a true X who can run posts and digs in some of those timing routes where he had issues last year. I mean, that unlocks so much of your offense, because now you feel really good when you have, a fullback on the field. Now you feel really good when you have 3 receivers on the field. If Raritan shows something for you year 1, you're going to feel really good when you have 2 tight ends on the field. And it means for someone like Brown with all these injury issues in the past, you can have him take off a series or 2 every game, even 3 series, and give him a rest if some of these other guys can step up for you.
So true. And you mentioned the OTA notes, and one thing that I'm disappointed about is Jack Westover's repping as the tight end too. And again, Raritan, whatever. Obviously Raritan is Raritan, but like I want CJ Dupree. Like I was a big believer in CJ Dupree last year. I thought that, the end of the year came, and instead of losing him off the practice squad, they signed him to the active roster. I thought that was a good sign for him moving forward. I thought he was one of, if not the best blocking tight end last year coming into the draft. And so my thought was, with a year kind of under his belt in the NFL, that he would kind of take that tight end 2/3 role this year, especially with Julian Hill going down, which Vrabel said was a devastating injury. My assumption is a torn ACL. So it's unfortunate. It did seem like he was going to be a really good guy. I liked a lot. I liked the energy that I saw from him. And so that part of it, I'm going to miss. He'll still be in the locker room and stuff, so I think that will help. But like, he's not on the field, and that's which kind of stinks. I thought he would have been a solid leader on the field, and in the locker room as well. It's harder to get through to guys if you're out for the year and haven't played with them before. So we'll see. But anyways, I thought Dupree was a guy that was going to take a step forward this year and maybe be a contributor. Still a long way to go, but I was disappointed to see it be Jack Westover and not CJ Dupree.
We're also early enough in this too that it could just be, Westover's been here, so he's going to get.
Certainly true. Yep.
Yeah. It is worth noting, I think, free agent tight ends, because I think Patriots should be in the market to sign someone.
You would think.
Like you don't want Raritan to have to play right away, and he's someone with an injury history too. So you would like to have one other real NFL body there. The 2 free agents who are still available, who played the most snaps last season, one of them is Zach Ertz. Did he retire?
I don't think so. I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
I don't think he's a fit for the Patriots. I mean, he's just not. He's not a blocker. He's a possession receiver at this point in his career. He's like a fun. Like I don't think he's a fit for what the Patriots are trying to do. But number 2 on this list is Jonnu Smith.
Zach Ertz not retiring, by the way.
Okay.
Ooh, Jonnu Smith. That would be interesting.
Which, here's the thing. We all know how it went before when you tried to pair Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, and how it went with him in this offense. But at a much cheaper contract to play a much smaller role, I wonder if that intrigues them. The other name that kind of caught my eye here is Will Dissly, who's just like a solid tight end. That could make sense. Anthony Ferkser is on this list. Pharaoh Brown is on here too. Yeah. So like, there's some names. I hope they sign someone, because this happened last year where your fullback gets hurt day 1 of camp and they never addressed it, and Westover ends up in that role. And I'm just not interested in doing that again. Please sign someone, because you want to be a bully ball team. You have a fullback. unless you're gonna have Gilliam also play tight end for you, sign a real tight end. And if he gets cut in camp, he gets cut in camp. That's fine. But
Right.
have a body in there.
Well, that's what it comes down to. If the only caveat to this would be, to me at least, if you're convinced that one of Dupree or Arkin is 100% ready to go and is going to step in and be that guy, fine. But even still, I think you take a shot at somebody, even if it's just a camp body, to see what he can do. I mean, there's no reason not to. I think the Jack Westover experience is over. We don't need Jack Westover here anymore. I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but like, he's just not an NFL player.
Well, if he's a practice squad guy and he's basically, if he's in your practice squad as your second fullback and fourth tight end,
right?
Fine.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean on the active roster is what I mean.
Well, like you shouldn't be in a spot where, and it's day 1 of training camp and everyone's putting out, or day 0 of training camp and everyone puts out their initial 53-man roster projections. Jack Westover should not be on those.
Correct. Yes.
And we're in that position right now. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse. Unless they just keep 2 tight ends and a fullback and say when we need bigger bodies, we're going to put another offensive lineman,
which they could do.
And they did it last year. Is Thayer Munford still around? Did he sign anywhere?
I don't know. But now you have Crownover. You have enough guys. You have so much depth at tackle.
And they James Hudson too, who they brought in.
True.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hudson's probably the guy who's the best run blocker out of those, unless Crownover really shows you something.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And ultimately, I guess we'll see. Mike Larry does point out here that a year 2 Kyle Williams jump would be huge. And, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Who will they trade to get that?
I'm not going to say Christian Gonzalez. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to assume that, unlike a certain someone who's also on CLNS, unlike that person, I'm not going to say that he hasn't proven himself over the last 3 years, and the Crafts aren't going to pay him, because I think that he's one of the best players at his position. Should have been probably an All-Pro last year. Wasn't. Should have been. And I think, is going to be that dude for a long time. I think you pay him. And I think they should pay him.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not talking about Taylor Kyles, Nikhil. It's a certain someone who happens to be on the Felgar Maz radio every week.
I know. I think Christian Gonzalez is staying. He and Witherspoon are both just playing.
I think so too. Yeah.
They're both just like posing. Neither one of them wants to be the one to sign first, because whoever signs first is going to have the second biggest deal position.
Right.
They're just going to do this until someone is like, all right, fine, I'll sign. And the other one's going to sign the next day, and I think everyone's going to be hunky-dory. That's my prediction for how that goes.
I like that.
Yeah. By the way, because I was looking ahead and we were talking about it, Patriots projected to have almost 28 million in cap space in 2027. We were talking about, ability to go all in that year.
Mm-hmm.
28 million, but if they can find replacements, Carlton Davis, if they cut him, could free $16.5 million that year. Harold Landry, $14.5 million. Morgan Moses, $9 million. And that's just in guys that you could like cut and save money. Christian Gonzalez would, I'm assuming, be in year 1 of an extension then, but that probably brings down his cap hit for that season, not up, because they're going to backload it.
Right.
So and I'm trying to see who else has big base out. I think that they have some other guys they could, convert some salary into bonus and stuff and free up a little more cap space too. So if you want to make 1 or 2 splash signings in free agency in 2027 and or continue to make trades and add veterans for who have salaries that you have to take into account, you can do that and I think push the envelope. And it's maybe not this year, but in 27. I
also think the Mike Onwenu deal we haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah, we haven't.
That was a really strange. Why did he do that?
Yeah. So for context, he just basically voluntarily took a reduction in money,
by $7.5 million.
And the only reason people do that is because they think typically that's presented as either do this or you're getting cut. Like that's, and people accept it because it's better than what they think they would get on the open market. But
Yeah, I
that pretty
guess.
much means no Michael Onwenu after this.
Seems like it, right?
Yeah. So this
Which I
seems
think,
like the last year for Michael Onwenu.
yeah, which I think probably makes sense if you look at the
I don't
situation.
think
You
so.
can, I
He's
guess maybe not. Yeah,
He's a unless like there's some issue here. He's a good player, and if you wanted to reduce his cap hit this year, you could tack 2 more years onto the deal, and unless
yeah. I was
and
surprised
unless
that they didn't do that. To be honest with you.
well, that's the thing is that you could say, hey, like they just couldn't agree to terms on a deal. Like they were going to try for an extension, they couldn't figure that out. But if that's the case, it's usually because one side wants a lot of money and the other side's only willing to pay some of that. And if you're in that position, you're never then just reducing salary this season voluntarily.
Yeah.
So like I don't think there were extension talks really at all. So
Yeah, I don't know. It was a bizarre thing to do. It's almost like, well, he helped them out with cap space, but like he took a pay cut. It's like that doesn't.
According to Over the Cap, the Pats do $37 million in cap space this year. I don't know how much of the AJ Brown stuff that takes into account. So they could go add more if they wanted to.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course,
I was just I don't know.
I think they probably want to roll some cap space over into the next season.
Yeah, you would think so.
And you want to
just to have some, but yeah, that was an interesting. I just was like, I didn't really get it, to be honest with you. Why Onwenu would do that? Obviously, it helps the team out, but he's just taking a haircut for no reason. Like, all right, sure, I guess, be a good teammate and stuff. That's great, but like, what do you win? What do you get out of that? And again, maybe he just wants to stay here for one more year, but like, I don't know. That seems strange to me.
I will say, who is a free agent if he hits the market is Osiris Torrance, the right guard from the Bills, who is a very good young player.
Yep. Yes, he is.
3 years younger than Onwenu. So maybe the Patriots would want to do that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yes. By the way, Matt, I did say taking a haircut for no reason. Matt, not you, Matt, but this Matt was wondering, did I say taking a haircut for no reason? And I did. I did, in fact, say that. Also, Nikhil thinks that Stevenson might get cut. Question.
I think if they had retained someone like Antonio Gibson, you could put that out there. If his fumble issues had come back up, but no, I mean, if Ramondre Stevenson is only getting cut if he can't hold on to the football one bit in camp and 2 other running backs show out for you.
Right. And by the way, just to be clear here, right? My dad did point out, which is true, that Onwenu now is $10 million guaranteed. That's true. That he didn't have any guaranteed money, but it's a 1-year deal, right? So
the alternative
is paid less.
When you expect to be on the roster, so like that roster guarantee only means that money guarantee only means all that much if there's a concern about you not being on the roster to make the money you would have otherwise.
Right.
Like, this is what the Patriots did back with Amendola back in the day. Is like, so and this is what they could have done with Diggs if the contract had a different structure. Like if you're entering the last year of a deal and your money's not guaranteed, then the team can come back and say, we think if we cut you, you're not getting this much. So we're going to ask you to take less because the alternative is we cut you and you're going to go get less somewhere else. And you meet at somewhere fairer in the middle. Fairer being subjective here, but
of course, but still,
meet at a number that the team at least thinks more accurately reflects the player's market value at that point in time. And I mean, that's kind of what this is. It seems like we'll guarantee you're on the team this year if you just take less money, which is crazy for someone currently is your starting right guard who's a veteran and was good last year.
Right.
So, and I will say, like we heard from Vrabel, he's a stickler for, showing up to the team in good physical condition. And when it was someone who had issues with that in the past. So I wonder if that's something that showed up again. We haven't heard about it yet, but like
certainly possible. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's not what I would have done. Because in 2027, I don't think you want to be opening up a spot on your offensive line like that, especially when Elijah Vera-Tucker is the question mark that he is with his injury history.
Right.
Because you open yourself up a situation right now for 2027 where when he was gone, Elijah Vera Tucker, things don't go the way you hope they do with him. Injuries crop up again, and you move on from Morgan Moses only for Lomu and or Will Campbell or both to not live up to expectations. And obviously it's football. You have to, the draft picks you make have to pan out.
Of course.
So that's at some point you have to bank on them.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
I would think 2027 in particular, the way this team is structured is a year where you want to have a lot of depth and insurance.
That's what you would think.
Not sure why Winnie doesn't seem to be part of that.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, they don't like him for one reason or the other. But by the way, Nikhil mentions that he thinks Stevenson's getting overpaid. Just like to, and maybe other people think that as well. Ramondre Stevenson is the 14th highest paid running back in the NFL based on 2026. Just his cap hit on 2026, less than Chuba Hubbard, just more than Jalen Warren. So, I don't know. He's getting less than James Cook. His cap number is higher than James Cook, but James Cook, his cap number is only higher than James Cook because James Cook signed a new deal and they backloaded the end of his deal, right? So
and that's the other part of it is that that would matter. I think if the team was up against the cap, they're not up against the cap,
right?
And paying your other running backs are cheap. So paying one running back, even if he ends up being running back 2 this year, when he's as good as Ramondre Stevenson is, that's fine. He's a solid. I will say, I had waited a while to watch the Forged in Foxborough. That was basically the highlights of all of last season, episode 4, just because I wanted to give it some space from the season.
Makes sense.
Before I watched it, finally watched that last week. First of all, tremendous job.
They did a great job with that.
Yeah, so good. Just the highlight packages are amazing. And that Texans game, even though you win the AFC Championship, the Texans game felt like
it did
the peak of the season. Just the environment, a snowy playoff game at Foxborough,
incredible,
big time opponent. You're scoring defensive touchdowns. You've got Drake May hitting big shots, receivers making catches. Grinded out last drive with Stevenson. I feel like that was the game where they really put it all together last year in a lot of ways, outside of the offensive line performance.
100%. And the best part of it is that all we heard all week long is the Patriots couldn't hang with them. The Patriots weren't going to be able to hang with them, and they weren't going to be able to beat them. And the Texans were so good, and their defense was incredible, and there's no way they were going to. How are the Patriots going to score on the Texans? But that's what we heard all week long. And the Patriots won anyways, right? I believe the majority of the NFL team picked against the Patriots.
And I think
Texans. So
it was funny because there's that clip on ESPN of all of the analysts picking the Texans to win that game.
That's
and
right,
it is funny because it's pretty clear that all of them thought, this is the upset I'm going to pick this week. This is the one I'm going to be clever on. And they all just happen to pick the same one.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a hilarious clip. And I think in the Forged in Foxborough, there's Carlton Davis kind of talking about being disrespected in there. I liked him. I thought he came off really well in the documentary. I loved how it was put together, and reminded me how big of a role Ramondre Stevenson really played last year. Yeah, and you don't do what you did last year without Trevion Henderson giving you a boost. Especially that game in Tampa,
of course,
and the game against the Jets.
Yep.
But then what Ramondre does down the stretch, the Ravens game with the late touchdown that wins it for you, putting away the Dolphins in Week 18 and just kind of single-handedly burying them. And then all throughout the playoffs, he was your best running back.
True. Yeah, it's true. It's a good point. So goalie, I also mentioned season 2 came out. The first episode of season 2 came out. Yeah. Again, fantastic job. The great kind of behind the scenes look at what was going on in the war room, thinking about making trades, trading up. You see them try to trade up for Akis multiple times before it actually happens. So those are things that are really cool. So, all right,
I'm gonna do the same thing on that. I think I'm probably gonna wait till the day before training camp opens to watch that.
Yeah, I feel that's smart.
Well, I feel like if you watch it in the moment, at least for me, it's a little bit of this just happened, so I'm just rewatching it from a different perspective, which is interesting. But I think getting it with a little bit of distance allows you to almost see it fresher because you don't remember the details as well.
It's a fair point. All right, we got to talk about the other trade that happened on Monday. Myles Garrett goes to the LA Rams, and this honestly might be the first trade that I truly feel like was a win-win. Obviously, the Rams get Myles Garrett, who was arguably the best player in the NFL. He's incredible. He's unbelievable. He's fantastic. He's a great
defensive player of the year last year. Yeah, sack record.
Yeah, just insane, right? Obviously destroyed the Patriots. But the Browns, who aren't in any position to be successful whatsoever anytime soon, because they're the Browns, but also because their team stinks, they get back Jared Verse, who's one of the best young edge players in the league. And they also get back a first-round pick in 2027. And they get back a second-round pick in 2028. And they get back a third-round pick in 2029, which is not something you see very often. But I just thought the haul that they get back is really good. Now, we assume that the Rams are going to be really good this year, right? And so, that's not going to be a high pick, but I don't know. Matthew Stafford had a bad back last year. Like, maybe this is the year that his back finally goes on him, and all of a sudden they're not as good as we thought they were, right? So that's one of those interesting things. And Goalie kind of mentions it. Their young core is pretty damn good, right? They drafted two young wide receivers this year. They just picked up a good edge defender. I love Carson Schlesinger. They got some really solid players in the secondary. So, like, you feel really good about where their team is headed. Now they just need the quarterback, right? And if you can get that guy this year, after this year, then you're like, all right, we're on our way, and we could be competitive. So I like the fact that they made this move. I thought it made sense for them instead of just getting first-round picks back. And so, yeah, and Nikhil actually points out too, like, why make the Ty Simpson pick? It makes that pick even more confusing.
Yeah, imagine if they had drafted receivers, the thing that stands out because they're going to be playing Jordan Whittington or Kanata Mumfield, and they drafted C.J. Daniels, who's a sixth-round pick. Like, if they had taken Makad Lemon,
right,
and or someone like that, so I gotta think of like Denzel Boston. I feel like for them, with that offense, it was in Cleveland.
From Devontae, like, my goodness,
Casey Concepcion, any of those guys give you a year one impact, and it's on paper, this Rams team was elite last year, probably the second best team in football, with a secondary that was horrendous. I mean, it was Emmanuel Forbes and I don't even remember some of the guys. It was some real rough names out there at corner for them last year, and they were able to paper over it because Chris Shula is so good as defensive coordinator, and their pass rush was elite, and basically they were able to scheme it up, and they were so well coached that on defense they could cover up for some stuff. So if you take all of that same schematic stuff defensively, but you add in that Myles Garrett is going to be one of the guys doing it, your pass rush is going to be lethal. And I think, like we talked about with what A.J. Brown can do for the Patriots offense, where he might not necessarily increase, the total number of points that you score, but what he does do is harder to quantify. But there are more situations where you are comfortable, or you can do something, or you can dictate to a defense what's going on, which helps you in more situations and helps you play against better teams. That's kind of what Myles Garrett does, because you can still win with all that schematic stuff. But now you can just go play with a 4-down rush and get sacks and play straight up on the back end, which is like, all right, we just got to go to our fastball. We can win with that too. They also add Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie in the secondary. So it's like you have a number one pass rusher, you have a number one DB, a lot of other really good pieces on this defense. You should be able to take it to teams and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think my concern with the Rams is that I don't think Myles Garrett's going to fall off a cliff, but he's older, and edge defenders, when they go a lot of the time. And defensive backs can be up and down. And then you look at that offense, and it's like Matthew Stafford, like you mentioned, who had a back injury, Devontae Adams, who's older, Puka Nacua, who has been oft injured in his career and has had to kind of manage his snap load.
Yep.
I think it's probably the smart move for them to go all in the way they're doing. I also worry about a world where it's like, man, it's week 6 and Stafford just took a hit and got hurt. Yeah. And Nacua was already out for the season because he did something. And man, well, the defense is top 5, but we're going to go 9-8 because, there's Ty Simpson, and he's going to have to play for you from the jump. That, I think, is a concern. And this is the world the Rams want to live in. They're always trying to push the envelope. Right now, they hate their first-round picks. And one of the reasons they can get away with it is because they draft so well later and have so many day 2 and day 3 picks that they make up for it. But it's a top-heavy roster, and like the top pieces are all very good, but I think there's risk there.
Yeah. Well,
I love it for the Browns that for someone like Myles Garrett, you're able to get back a good player, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. That's a great return.
Well, I think, to your point, right, the Rams are an interesting example of the draft not mattering, but then also mattering a hell of a lot, right? Because not mattering in the fact that they just have traded all of their first-round picks, right? From Matthew Stafford, from Jared Goff, who, of course, they ended up trading for Matthew Stafford, and then traded a bunch of picks with those guys, right? Then their next pick was Jared Verse, who they then traded for Myles Garrett, right? So, between Jared Goff and Jared Verse, they make 0 first-round draft picks. But yet they end up with Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua and, Steve Avila and, and Braden Fisk.
Yeah.
Say that again. And who?
No, I'm saying Avila is a great call out there.
Right. And it's those guys. And it's like, man, you hit on all those players and you're like, they just keep doing it. Right. And so that's the stuff where you just feel like, even a guy like Warren McClendon, who I think is going to be their starting right tackle this year, like you draft those guys and you hit on them. And if you hit on enough of, and again, I always say this and it doesn't, it's obvious, right? But it doesn't matter when you draft. It matters who you draft, right? Like it doesn't matter when you're drafting. You just have to draft the right guy, right? Like, that's a lot easier said than done. And it's a lot easier to draft the right guy in the first round than it is to draft the right guy in the fourth round. But if you draft the right guy in the fourth round instead of the first, it doesn't matter that you didn't have a first round pick, And so, and I think that's kind of the point. And Nikhil's pointing out too, that like the Niners do the same thing and they've done it less as of late, which is why they haven't been as good. Right. And so you see those kind of downswings and stuff. And so the Rams have continued to do it. The Patriots did it last year, but really hadn't done it in years before last year. And so, now it's like, can we get back to that? If we did it last year, can we do it this year? Then if we do it one more year, now it's like, now you got a Super Bowl caliber roster, and you can trade some of those early picks that the Patriots did for A.J. Brown and still feel good about where you're at.
Well, and it's funny because like you look at all these drafts for the Rams, even though they don't have their first, they're making a ton of picks. The last 2 years they haven't made as many, but before that they're making a ton of picks every year. It's just, and it seems like their whole philosophy is that we're going to cash in our first round pick for someone that we know is good right now, and we're going to try to get as many picks in the later rounds as possible. So it's like we're going to get a guaranteed star. This guy's going to be good for us. Now we're going to fill out the middle class of the roster by taking as many dart throws as possible. And like one of the things I think the Rams have done well is their self-scouting of like when they're bringing in a player, they know exactly what that player does well. So then when they are drafting, it's like, all right, if we know we have this defensive end who does this, then we only need these traits at linebacker. I think one of the things they've gotten cheap at linebacker for a long time, I think in part because they've got a defensive line now that's so good and penetrates so well that like you're not looking for a Dante Hightower type or even like a Landon Roberts type where it's like, all right, we want you to be able to stack and shed against offensive linemen and like 2 gap Like, no, our defensive linemen are going to take care of that. We just need you to be able to clean up the mess.
Right.
That's all we're asking here. Just clean
Right.
up the mess. Clean up the mess and be playable in coverage. You can get this guys in day 3. And if you take one every year, especially when a lot of the time you're only putting 1 or 2 on the field anyway, and you can sign guys in free agency too to supplement, like, all right, well, if you're making 8 or 9 picks every draft, you're going to use 1 on a linebacker each of those years, plus throw, a free agent contract, decent sized free agent contract or 2 at the position every once in a while. Like, all right, well, you've taken care of that because you've done things a different way. And we talk about going all in 2027 for the Patriots. If you follow this Rams philosophy, I wonder if you go into next offseason saying, all right, where can we send this 2029 first? We're trying to go all in right now.
Right.
Who can get us there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that I will say, like, that's, if anything, if I have one regret about this Patriots offseason, it's that I wish they were a little bit more aggressive. We're going all in on this window.
Yeah.
Follow the lead of the Rams and make a couple more aggressive moves or one more aggressive signing somewhere. And they tried with like Alec Pierce, and it was a weird free agency. So like I get that, but sign an additional pass rusher is probably the first one I would lead with there.
Well, and so that's the interesting thing, and there's been some rumors obviously floating around about Kayvon Thibodeau, and could you use Kayshon Boutte to pick up a guy like that, right? There are guys that are going to be floating around and, hey, this guy wants to move on, or we want to move on from this guy. Well, we have Kayshon Boutte. Now, we like Kayshon Boutte. We want to keep him. But, if you want Kayshon Boutte and you're going to trade us Kayvon Thibodeau, we'll throw in a 5th-round pick or something like that. Sure. And we'll kind of go from there, or whatever, a 6th-round pick or whatever it might be. And, and the Patriots get a guy like that they can plug in and kind of go from there.
But
look, I think that makes sense,
The name I think you got to throw out there too is Max Crosby. I don't really know what that situation is going to look like here, and we don't know the medicals. So like, don't go trading a lot of draft capital to pick up the 2 most injured guys on the market here.
Right.
But if Max Crosby wants to come to New England, you're going all in on this. If you're confident in the medicals and the price comes down now that we are in this spot, especially the Raiders do not have good receivers. Like Boutte is probably someone that would be interesting to them.
Yeah.
Like if you could give up, something that is built around a 27 second and Boutte and probably like a 3rd in 2028, that kind of thing. Like, if you're confident in the medicals,
I'd do that in a heartbeat. I'd do that in less than a heartbeat.
That's probably too little for him.
Yeah.
But like something built around that type of deal, explore it.
Yeah.
Like you need that kind of impact on your roster. And it's an arms race right now. I think you look at the AFC and first of all, if the Rams are as good as that team looks on paper, and there's no hiccups, and they just do this all season,
then it doesn't matter.
The Patriots are doing all this to lose in the Super Bowl,
right?
And obviously, you need a little luck, but like, you're not beating that team under most circumstances right now, unless a lot of things break your way, which they can. And
of course,
if the draft works for you and you're well coached and a well-run organization, you don't rule that out, but you don't want to leave it up to chance. Be more aggressive. Continue to make moves.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I also didn't say I do like the deal for the Browns. I think it's a great move for them.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah,
maybe I did say that, but I
you did. But that's okay. But yeah,
I think that's ideal for them. And we talked about this. Everyone's positioning themselves now for Arch or whoever QB2 or 3 might be in this class next year. And do you know who seems poised to get left out of that right now? It's the New York Jets.
Yeah.
I will say, picking up an extra first next year for the Browns, that especially because it's going to be a late first, unless the Rams totally fall apart here.
Right.
That's not going to help you get Arch, because that's not if you're at pick 4, and the team picking at 1 needs a quarterback, 4 and
of
pick
course
31.
Yeah, that's not helping you.
No, they're not moving off of that. But like it could help you with QB2 or QB3, or like you don't trade. It's just another guy you can add talent-wise.
I think ultimately what it comes down to is that Myles Garrett is a better player than Jared Verse. So you're downgrading your team this year.
Yeah, for the potential upgrade.
And you're upgrading your assets for the future years, but you're still getting a very good, potentially very, I don't even think we really have to say potentially with Jared Verse anymore, a very good defensive player, right? So you're replacing the same position. Yes, you're downgrading it right now, but in 3 years, will that still be a downgrade in 3 years, right? When Myles Garrett's 34, or will be 34, right?
On your roster.
So then you say, okay, if that's the case, in 3 years from now, Jared Verse, okay, we're going to give him a new contract, but like Jared Verse is going to be a better player than Myles Garrett. We're betting, right? In 3 years, we're going to suck until then. So what the hell difference does it make, right? Yeah. So you downgrade your team. You have less of a chance to win now because you have a worse player. And then you've also increased your assets for next year. And so, yeah, maybe you're not moving that. Maybe you're not trading that pick to move back up. But maybe you're drafting another player at that spot. Or maybe you're trading your first round pick in 2028 to move up and draft your quarterback. And then you can take that late round pick in 2027 and trade it for a first round pick in 2028. Who knows, right? But it gives you flexibility to move around a little bit.
Well, I think the other thing, if we're going to learn from the Rams here, if we assume that what they're doing is well thought out and working in a sustainable strategy, if you're the Browns, your first pick next year, you're using to draft a quarterback, and you probably see after this year, you trade that Rams pick to go get a bona fide good player to put in next year rookie quarterback.
Right. True.
Like that's what the Rams just did. They went out and got Trent McDuffie. If you're the Browns and you try to turn this thing around, you're trying to fix up that offensive line right now. All right, next year, we found 3 spots on the line. We're going to draft at one of the spots, trade for a starter at one of the other ones, and now we know we're going to have a top 10 offensive line. We've managed to turn this around in 2 years. We could put a rookie quarterback behind a great line. And you've got Boston Concepcion, and all of a sudden, it's a great situation for a young quarterback.
Agreed. Yep, agreed. So,
all right. Are we? I think that's it for today.
I think that's it, man. I think that's all we got.
We're doing. We're gonna be back Thursday this week.
I believe so. You're around, right? You're around.
Yep.
All right, I'm around too. So that works.
Thursday we'll do.
Thursday, and we'll do the next. We're going to continue our 2016 rewatch. We'll do the next 4. We got to come up with a name for those, but the next 4 games. So that would be what, game 9 through 12.
Yeah, for the 2016 Patriots on our rewatch there. I will say I haven't looked back over the games 2, 3, and 4 in that grouping. I rewatched the entirety of that 2016 Pats Seahawks game because I really wanted to. And man, that's a fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to save any more detailed discussion about it for our show on Thursday, but I got some thoughts on it watching.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, by the way, just a few notes here. 618, Browns made the right call because they're not going to compete with Garrett's there. I agree. And then Akio is just saying that the Columbus area radio must be just losing their minds. I can't even imagine.
Good.
I can't even imagine. But and by the way, Walkman makes a good point here too, that like the NFL might be overvaluing the defensive ends a little bit, which I think is an interesting take. I think the biggest thing for me with them is that it's the scheme. It's not just the player itself. It's, Myles Garrett has such an impact on your roster because not only is he an incredible player, but you have to, every single snap, you're worried about where is Myles Garrett? How do we stop him? So you're putting extra guys on him. Meanwhile, you're a rookie defensive tackle that no one's paying attention to is knifing up the middle and sacking the quarterback, right? So I think that it's not just them. It's also the fact that the scheme has to incorporate where those guys are. And I think that that's a part of it as well. So,
and it's, you're 1 play away in the NFC Championship game last year. If your defense gets 1 more stop at any point in that game, you win. You're looking for a guy who can do that for you. And it's risky. The Rams are absolutely going all in on a group.
Yeah.
That can work for you. Like we
Right.
saw with the Celtics in 2024. You can go all in with that group knowing this is a 2-year window and you come out of it with a championship. You did it. Sometimes it's the 2022, 2023 Bruins where you go all in for it.
Yeah.
And you get unlucky in the play. You get a combination of injured and unlucky in the playoffs, and everything comes crashing down all at once, and then you have to face reality after. And
right.
That's and it's there's kind of that tension here between teams like organizations like the Packers that are consistently good every single year and have had 3 franchise quarterbacks in a row and great coaches and 2 Super Bowls in the last 30 years here because you're always there. Your window's never closed. You're always competitive. But you also haven't had that thing to put it over the top, which of course they swing for last year, and Micah Parsons immediately gets hurt, which is awful.
Right.
So like that's the other way you can play it. I think teams should just do it like the Patriots do and just have the best team in the league sustainably every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just simply draft the greatest quarterback of all time in the 6th round. Why don't
have the best coach of all time? It's fine. We're good. You know what I mean? Like, how hard is that?
Why haven't the Browns decided to do that?
That's what I mean. Just draft the best quarterback of all time. What are you doing?
Imagine if the Browns had a coach like Bill Belichick. Imagine if the Browns decided to invest in quarterback in 2000. Imagine where they'd be now.
Man, that's a low blow. It's a low blow. All right, that's it. On that note, we're out of here. Sorry, Cleveland. We're adding to the pain. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll see you Thursday night for the part 3 of our 2016 rewatch. Be good to each other and go Pats.